and the fight for higher food production was carried into the fields by a new army, the Women's Land Army. The Lilac Sunbonnet Brigade, as they were called, overcame the skepticism with which they were greeted by the farmers and formed a vital replacement to farm workers, drafted by the inexorable demands of war to the front. Timber, a vital commodity in a war which demanded more and more for pit props, for ammunition boxes, for huts and billets, for duckboards, for trench works, and for building, called for more and more labor. Again, women came to help and invaded a man's world with energy and with unexpected skill. Nations came to accept the breaking down of traditions and firm beliefs, intrusions upon old ways, personal liberties. Motor vehicles, when requisitioned for government purposes, rolled impressively into military depots. Compulsory rationing, requisition, national control of industry and shipping and railways, conscription, women in work normally done by men, national scientific research, now even Britain, with her traditional dislike of large-scale organization and state direction, had yielded to the shrill imperatives of total war. Lloyd George wrote,
"The scope of government control widened steadily and ineluctably until it covered practically the whole industrial life of the nation. The nation concentrated all its great strength and skill on victory."
In every country now, the individual had become a cog in a huge and complex war machine. Whole new industries had been created since 1914 for making aero engines, for making all the instruments required by modern aircraft. A small chemical industry had been transformed into a great national asset. Standardized or prefabricated ships slid down the slipways one after another. Steel for guns or steel for shells. Steel for ships or steel for tanks. There was not enough for all. Engines for tanks or engines for lorries or engines for aircraft. Not enough for all. Britain was now the war factory of the Allies. In France, the bloody losses of 4 years had drained the land of fit men. Her farms needed labor as much as her factories. France was working and striving for victory to the limits of her strength. So was Germany. Endlessly, the trains rolled away from her factories loaded with war material. In every country, the worker was a cog in the machine. Yet often he was better looked after as a cog than he'd been in peacetime as a private citizen. This was one of the strangest ironies of total war. Factory canteens became commonplace instead of showpieces of a few progressive firms. National kitchens or restaurants were set up in industrial areas.
The purpose of this movement, organized by the Ministry of Food, is to instruct the poorer classes how food by proper cooking can be made to yield the most nutrition with the least waste. The food is distributed to the poorer residents, women, girls and boys, who come in large numbers with bowls, dishes and plates.
Better working conditions, medical centers, special housing for workers, high wages. These also were the fruits of total war. Lloyd George told an audience,
"It is a strange irony, but no small compensation, that the making of weapons of destruction should afford the occasion to humanize industry. Yet such is the case. Old prejudices have vanished, new ideas are abroad. This opportunity must not be allowed to slip."
It could not be allowed to slip. Victory depended on industry. The enemy knew this too.
His Majesty the Kaiser has expressed great hopes that the air war against England will be carried out with the greatest energy. His Majesty has designated as attack targets war material of every kind, barracks, and also oil and petroleum tanks, and the London docks.
The scientist and the engineer had created a new dimension in warfare, the air. The demands of total war changed the marvelous toy of 1914 into an instrument to carry death and terror to the enemy's unarmed civilians and destruction to his war factories. In the autumn of 1916, as many as 14 Zeppelins at a time set out for England. 200,000 cubic feet of hydrogen lifted them. The Zeppelin crews were pioneers in the upper air. Each mission was an epic of danger and endurance.
For the attacking aircraft and also for the anti-aircraft guns, a Zeppelin of that size was a sitting target. About over 300 feet long, 50 feet in diameter, at a speed of 60 miles per hour. That was all. It was a very cold affair to go across to England. It was so cold that if you forgot that you didn't wear a glove at a given moment and touched any part of the aluminium structure, you would burn your fingers. And the sandwiches, which we kept in a container in the gondola, were absolutely frozen stiff, and you had to melt part of it in your mouth until it became soft enough to be bitten off.
German science gave her airmen a triumph in English skies. British science made that triumph only of brief duration. The incendiary bullet transformed a Zeppelin into a blazing funeral pyre in the sky. The death of a great airship was terrible, even to the men who destroyed it.
I approached it from the stern, about 300 feet below it, and fired 4 drums of explosive ammunition into its stern, which immediately started to light. At the same time as I was doing this, one of the other pilots was flying across the airplane, across the Zeppelin from the top, over the top. And to his horror, he saw a man in the machine gun pit on the top of the Zeppelin run to the side and leap overboard.
When I looked up and I saw that this Zeppelin had been picked out by the searchlights. Then there was a small glow which gradually spread the whole length, and afterwards the thing burst into one big conflagration. There was a gasp of, I don't know whether it was abhorrence or whatever it was from the people. Very much like the sound that one would get when there's a big firework display. And as it came down, very, very slowly, I heard my mother say, "Oh, those poor men up there." But there was an old Boer War veteran next door who said, "Let 'em frizzle." And so it came gradually down. But someone, I don't know whom, took up, started to sing the Land of Hope and Glory, and it was